Good evening and good afternoon, or whatever it is where you are. Thank you for joining us once again on this Microsoft 365 virtual marathon. Next up is Matthias Paul Telkamp, who is from Timeline Enterprises, and he's going to be talking us through learning pathways. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Carl, for the introduction. Yes, I'm going to be speaking on learning pathways. Do want to remind everybody to mark your calendars for next year, March 23rd, 25th, for the Collaboration Conference. Also, thank you to all of our generous sponsors. Be sure and visit all of their booths. So, learning pathways from zero to launching your own training. A little bit about me. I started working in SharePoint in 2003 using Microsoft Office SharePoint Server, or MOS, and quickly knew that's what I wanted to work with. I've done administration, development, and architecture of multiple environments, ranging from 1 to 16 servers in the farm, and once managed 110 SharePoint servers worldwide at the same time. Currently, I'm working on project server, SharePoint on-prem environments, SharePoint development using SPFX, site scripts, Power Platform. In addition, I enjoy coding using Node.js, Next.js, Express.js, and React, and many other JavaScript frameworks. And I also like to automate tasks that I don't have to repeat, so I don't have to repeat any actions. So, how many of you are experiencing fragmented training with pages all over the enterprise, videos in one place and presentations in another, information stuck in OneNote, not available for others to find? And the biggest thing here is that Learning Pathways lets us have that single source location that all the information is accessed through. The content doesn't have to move from where it's at. And it can be security trimmed, but when you want to help people find out how to use the tools that are at their disposal, you don't want them to have to search everything. You just need them to get it, learn it, and move on. So today's agenda, we're going to be covering the following items. Because who doesn't want a centralized user-paced training for everyone? So what is Learning Pathways? Learning Pathways is tailored to what you need, allowing for you to add information and create areas of interest that align with the needs of your organization. You can do product and scenario-based training in video and article format. You can deploy it using PnP within minutes, or by adding the SharePoint package to the app catalog. And as Office 365 changes, the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways content will always be updated. You can hide and show content to align with how you have set up your Office 365 environment. And you can add your own custom content training and playlist to feature your organization's specific scenarios. And the best thing is that the content is always up to date. All right, so for the requirements, this is a list of items that must be ready in your environment when you're ready to start. global admin is needed during the install only, and you can have that revoked, but the rest of this needs to be put in place as far as your app catalog within your tenant, selecting who's going to be controlling your content and who's going to do the installation. You will need to make sure you have a team of people to work. So someone needs to be creating the pages and knowing what training needs to be put out there. Anytime something new is created, they will need to create and manage the new content. And if you have unique requirements, you may want to consider adding that functionality through a custom SharePoint framework solution. You can also invite guest users to the site so that they can see the content you need them to, but you will need to plan accordingly. All right, so to go through setup, you will be, there are a couple of paths to installing, and they are both simple enough. We will focus on the first one, which is PnP provisioning, as it is the simplest method. Vanity URLs will not work with the provisioning engine, so if you're one of the few companies that does have vanity URL, this won't work for you. Otherwise, the difference is with the custom layout and navigation with the PnP engine, and if you just deploy the web part, you're getting just the web part, and you have to add the rest of the content in yourself. When deploying through PowerShell script, it will not deploy assets that are needed for training. So if you attempt to provision without the app catalog, you will get a notice that you have not gotten all the prerequisites. And this can also happen if you have just created the app catalog, as it requires a 2-hour lead time. You need to make sure you have that with enough time. So the reason for all the permissions needed is that proper provisioning, creating the communication site, deploying the app to the app catalog, assigning permissions, as well as custom lists, views, and assets that are deployed to the site collection. And this is a Microsoft solution. It's not just a third-party application. And the permissions can be revoked for the account for PnP after you've done the deployment. All right, so provisioning does take about 15 minutes. Just be prepared. It will send you an email when you've actually got that done. And then this is an example of what it looks like when you're going to deploy learning pathways. You navigate to the provisioning URL, click the add to your tenant, you select the path and change the collection you'll be creating if you want. Once you click on provision, if you haven't met all the prereqs, it will go through an error, and then so we just saw it where it errored on provisioning. Now we're going through a successful deployment, validating your prerequisites, and then it'll show you what will be provisioned. You click confirm and feel free to take a 15-minute break. Once it's done, you will get the email and check mark on the screen, and then we can navigate to the site collection for getting started with making it your own. All right. Configuring. You can hide and unhide any of your categories, products, scenarios, adoption. You know, all this different pieces. You can hide it so that you don't have that shown. You cannot add new categories unless you're using a custom content pack. If you are using a custom content pack, then you can add content that is available within your tenant, but not published externally. Content management is going to be key to making this all work. This is a list of different ways to manage content within the system. And you will want to use your usage reports in order to see what people are looking for and what they're going to. All right, now we're going to switch to the demo. All right. All right, so what Learning Pathways did was it installed your communication site. It created all the pages that you need by default. And then it added all the web parts in the default. So you'll want to go to Microsoft 365 training. And then in here, this is all of your custom content that has been brought into your tenant. And it's deployed everything. Again, your content, your categories can't be changed. But if you click on any one of the subcategories, this takes you into the different training that's available. And then you can click on a playlist and it takes you into the training that's available. Then go back to home. If you want to modify any of this, and you click over here to the gear, and it's going to take you into the admin area. You do need to be a site owner to be able to make this change. And then from here, you can, again, show and hide different content. You can show different subcategories. You can add new subcategories. Save. And then from here, now you can add add playlist to the subcategory. So in here, you can just put in pathways and then we select the technology. We'll just select SharePoint. The category here is how it's going to be showing over here. And you can select your level of what you feel is appropriate for this training, whether it's beginner, intermediate, or advanced. And then who your audience is. And this is so that any user coming in here will know, that it applies to them in their role. So we can just select help desk. And then from here, you want to save this. And then you can add new assets. And adding new assets, you can just give it a title. So Once you give it a title, you'll be able to set the URL. Again, your technology can be multiple technologies. So in this case, again, we'll select SharePoint. Not what I wanted. And then you can choose to either create a page, or if you have a URL, you can just copy and paste that directly in here. And then you can save the asset. And then as you add multiple assets in here, you can move them around in whichever order. You can delete them. You can also go back and edit this. So this, if the page does not work in whatever situation, you can point it to a new page. You can just completely remove it from the asset if you want. You can also go into a specific playlist and then copy the playlist. And when you copy it, it does put copy up here in front and gives you that title. And then you can edit the details and edit all of your playlist here. And this is going to allow for you to add in additional assets if you need. It can also allow for you to pull in or modify this in whichever order you want your user to take the training. If we go back to the training and someone wants to search for specific information, they can just type in here. And this will allow for them to see all the different playlists and how to do different things. Give you multiple pages of information. And then they can come in here and be able to get all this information, and all the page is always going to be the same. So they don't, everything is like a single page application in this case. They can make it full page, and then they can just navigate up here through the navigation, or they can use this drop down in order to select which portion of the training they want to go to. So in addition to being able to set this up like this, you can add your own page. So I created a Timlin radio page, and in this, when we come in and edit, you can select the web part, edit the web part, and then here you can select your learning source. So if you want to have your learning pathways, or you use the SharePoint Success Kit, you can add the Timlin radio if you want, or if you can create any of the custom learning sources that you want and be able to target that content specifically. You can give it a title, and then all you got to do is select if you want to show all the content, or if you just want to use the full web part. You can also select, do you want to grab a category, or do you want to grab the subcategories, or do you just want to grab the playlist? So in here, filter playlist, and this gets us to a single playlist. And then this is where all your content would live. You can also select a specific asset if you want to drill down that far. You don't. Nice thing is that when you publish this and someone goes in here, they've got the comments, but this information, if you were to go to our public website for Timlin Enterprises, you would be able to go to our blog and actually find this post from April 13th. But in this case, we brought it within the SharePoint tenant. Another thing you can do is if you're wanting to use this in Teams, you can create a team and then add the web part, drill down to the specific information you want, and then within your Teams, you just add a page, and then you can have it be full screen within your team so that people can get to the specific content that you want them to be able to see. Another thing that you can do, there's an option for you to go through and deploy once you set up a page, you can deploy that page as an app. So you can take your customized content pack and your custom training and target different teams as far as who you deploy the app to. That can make it real powerful, because if you want to just make all of your training content available to everybody, you can, or if you just want to target different departments as you roll it out to them, you can. There's a lot of functionality and a lot of benefits to how you choose to make that rollout happen. All right. So next is the customizations. And so how do we create the custom content packs? Some of the things you'll need to do is you'll probably need to fork my repo, or you can find the official repo from Microsoft. And then you can just follow the documentation if you want to create your own. And so that you know what that content pack is when you're looking at your admin. Right up here across the top, you'll see your Microsoft Learning 365 pathways. This is where I've added the SharePoint Success Kit. You can edit this, and you can just add this URL and the display name. The GUID is predetermined for you. And then you just press update, and it goes out and finds all that content. For Timlin Radio, on this, I just gave it a display name of Timlin Radio, but this is my actual GitHub pages that are out there. And these are just examples of how many different content packs you could have. You know, you can just keep adding as many as you need. So the content for this, depending on who needs to be able to get to your content pack, will determine where you want to place your content. If it is public, then I would suggest GitHub. And if it is all internal, then you can just use an Azure CDN and keep it all within your Azure environment. As for the content within your content pack, you can pick and choose Microsoft documentation, You can use your Microsoft 365 tenant. You can also use your public website or any other location if you whitelist each of those locations. And then updating your content in the storage location updates every tenant that is subscribing to your custom content pack. There's also some telemetry that you can get using the app insights on who's accessing and what the usage data is. So now I'm going to switch over and show you what it looks like. So this is the structure. You'll need to have a V3 folder, and then within that, you're going to have an images folder that has categories, playlists, and technologies. Again, if you go and just copy this down, then it'll save you the trouble of having to find all this stuff. You can also use the assets and metadata and playlists. That's the only ones you'll need. Metadata is really just about what are your different technologies, your categories. This is where if you need to have your custom content, your custom categories, you'll want to go in here and add each of those. You can add your subcategories within that. You can define all your different audiences. So if you want something different than what's already listed in here, just add a new ID, add a new GUID to the ID, and then give it a name. You also have different sources, so you can basically tag, where this content is coming from. Your different levels, again, your beginner, intermediate, advanced. So if you want to add like level 100, level 200, level 300, you can add all that information in here. And then you can tag each of the information so that people know the status of how soon it's come out, if it's been updated, so when they're looking at it, they can find out real quickly. And then down here, this is where you define all your origins of where you're able to get different information. And assets, this is where each of your different assets for the URL that you're going to be loading, using the technology ID, give it a custom title and description, and then your assets roll up into your playlist so that when you take a GUID from an asset, you just place that inside your playlist, it knows where to add that. So if you wanted to see what it looks like out here on GitHub, you can just find my GitHub repository, go to Timberland Radio, and then you'll be able to traverse through everything here. But if you want to get back to this URL, what you're going to be looking for is you'll go to the settings on your project, and you'll just go down here to your GitHub pages, and this is where it's actually published when you choose your source. And then this lets anyone be able to grab that information. All right, so if you decide that you want to extend learning pathways, you will need to, if you need any custom actions, like recording how long someone's watching a video, or say provide a test on the content that they're viewing, you will need to create a custom SharePoint framework solution that can be deployed. You may also consider adding web parts or solutions from the App Store or other solution providers. Do we have any questions? Is there any questions out there, Carl? Is there any questions? Can't hear you.
Can't hear me, Paul. Sorry, I double muted myself. There is a question in the Q&A. So, do you have to go into the code to define setup? No front end way is what Anonymous is asking.
Do you have to go into the code to define where? So if you're talking about an asset, this is where you'd go define the URL. But when you've placed all this content together and you go into, you deployed it into your GitHub repository, once you have that URL there, that's where you place this in here, and that's where it sucks everything in.
Okay, I'm not sure whether that covers it. Hopefully someone will reply in the chat. That is all the questions we've got.
All the questions. Okay.
So any more comments or questions for anybody to Paul?
All right.
Sorry, there isn't any, Paul.
It's okay. Thank you for coming to my session. We'll remind everyone that there is a raffle at the end of this. Just need to visit the vendors booths, watch some sessions, watch the videos, submit your answers, and then you'll need at least 5 correct answers, then submit for a chance to win. There's one for Americas, APAC, and EMEA. And then if you could just consider donating to the following charity relief funds. You got United Way and International Medical Corps. You can also get more information from info@m365virtualmarathon.com. And just thank you for joining today, and thank you for coming to my session.